This video will help you acquire the knowledge, skills, and attitude necessary to own and use a pistol safely. We'll cover the major parts of the pistol, the various types, and how they operate. Along the way, we'll discuss the fundamental gun safety rules and how they are applied when firing a pistol.
Also, we'll tell you about pistol ammunition, the fundamentals of shooting, and the techniques of firing a pistol from the bench rest and the two-handed standing shooting position. Although there are a number of pistol types, the most common are the revolver and the semi-automatic. A revolver is a pistol that has a rotating cylinder containing a number of firing chambers. Pulling the trigger or cocking the hammer will line up a chamber with the barrel and firing pin. All revolvers consist of three main parts: the frame, the barrel, and the action. The frame is the backbone to which all other parts are attached. Major frame components include the grip panels, the trigger guard, which protects the trigger from inadvertent contact, the rear sight, the back strap, and the front strap. The hole inside the barrel, the bore, contains spiral lands and grooves, called the rifling, which spin the bullet to stabilize it in flight. The bore's caliber is the measurement of its diameter expressed in either inches or millimeters. At the front of the barrel is the muzzle where the bullet exits, and the front sight. Finally, the action is a group of moving parts used to load, fire, and unload a pistol.
Revolvers have a number of action parts such as the trigger, hammer, and hammer spur, which helps the thumb cock the hammer. The cylinder holds ammunition in individual chambers that are rotated into firing position by the action of the trigger or hammer. On some revolvers is a cylinder latch, which allows the cylinder to swing out from the frame for loading. The ejector removes empty cases or live cartridges from the cylinder and is activated by the ejector rod. There are basically two types of revolvers: single action and double action. In a single action revolver, the trigger performs one action, releasing the hammer. The hammer must be manually cocked with a thumb. In a double action revolver, the trigger performs two tasks. It both cocks and releases the hammer. Most double action revolvers can also be fired in the single action mode by manually cocking the hammer with the thumb.
The other major type of pistol is the semi-automatic. The term semi-automatic means each time the trigger is pulled, it fires a single cartridge, then automatically extracts and ejects the empty case, and feeds a new cartridge into the chamber of the barrel. Like a revolver, a semi-automatic pistol consists of a frame, a barrel, and an action. Semi-automatic pistols have many frame components in common with revolvers, such as grip panels, a trigger guard, and the front strap and back strap areas. The barrel of a semi-automatic pistol, like that of a revolver, has a bore, rifling to stabilize the bullet, a muzzle where the bullet exits, and sometimes a front sight. Its bore size or caliber is measured the same way. At the rear of the barrel, an enlarged section of the bore, called the chamber, holds the cartridge to be fired. Barrels in locked breech semi-automatic pistols have lugs which lock the barrel to the slide at the moment of firing. In such pistols, upon firing, the barrel and slide recoil rearward together, keeping the breech sealed, and unlock only when the pressure in the chamber has dropped to a safe level. Semi-automatic pistols also share some of the same action parts as revolvers, like the trigger, hammer, and hammer spur. There are also hammerless semi-automatic pistols, which lack an external hammer. Some of these have an internal hammer, while others have a spring-powered firing pin or striker. An important action component of semi-automatic pistols is the slide, which slides on rails in the frame. When the slide is all the way forward and the action is closed, the slide seals or locks the breech. Upon firing, the slide moves to the rear and is returned forward to close the breech by pressure from the recoil spring. Some slides enclose the barrel, while others are located to the rear of the barrel. The slide has three main functions. First, it extracts the cartridge case from the chamber and ejects it from the pistol. Second, in most semi-automatics, the rearward motion of the slide cocks the hammer or firing pin. And last, as the slide moves forward, it causes the top cartridge from the magazine to feed into the chamber. A semi-automatic's rear sight, and often the front sight as well, are usually mounted on the side. You should know that there are many different devices for aiming a revolver or semi-auto. Iron sights like these are probably what you're most familiar with. Some different sights include laser sights, which project a beam of laser light onto the target, and red dot sights, which use a red dot as the aiming point. Telescopic sights, which are ranged by way of crosshairs, are also popular for long-range pistol shooting. The main advantage of all these types of sights is that they do not require the shooter to align the front and rear sight with the target.
Other semi-automatic action parts include the slide stop or slide lock, a lever on the frame that holds the slide rearward when it is engaged, the decocking lever which lowers a cocked hammer, and a takedown lever which allows the slide and barrel to be separated from the frame. Additionally, most semi-automatic pistols also have a safety on the slide or frame. Always remember that safeties are mechanical devices that can fail. You must follow the rules for safe gun handling. At the bottom of the frame is the magazine, a detachable storage device that holds cartridges to be fed into the chamber. The magazine is released from the gun by the magazine release, a button or lever located on the frame. There are three main types of semi-automatic pistol actions. With a single-action semi-automatic, each pull of the trigger only performs one function, releasing the cocked hammer. The hammer must be manually cocked for the first shot, and the action of the slide cocks the hammer for each subsequent shots. Traditional double-action semi-automatic pistols have a long, heavy initial trigger pull that both cocks and releases the hammer. Each subsequent shot is fired in a single-action mode. Other semi-automatic pistols have double-action only operation, in which each trigger pull both cocks and releases the hammer or striker, as with a double-action revolver. These pistols are different in the way they operate, feel, and fire. In order to use your pistol safely and effectively, you must know how to load, cock, uncock, and unload it. There are specific procedures for performing these functions with single-action and double-action revolvers. When you're learning these procedures with any pistol, use only clearly identifiable dummy ammunition and be sure there is no live ammunition in the area. The procedures for loading, firing, decocking, and unloading a double-action revolver are in some ways similar to those of a single-action revolver. Whether you are a right-handed or left-handed shooter, the first step in reloading is to transfer the revolver into the right hand. This exposes the cylinder release. Push the cylinder release forward with the right hand thumb, wrap the left hand around the frame, and use the two middle fingers of the left hand to push the cylinder to the left out of the frame while rotating the revolver frame to the right. With the chambers of the cylinder exposed and the muzzle tilted slightly downward in a safe direction, insert live cartridges into the chambers until the cylinder is full. Finally, push the cylinder back into the frame until it clicks closed. Most double-action revolvers can be fired in either the single or double-action mode. In single-action mode, first make sure the revolver is pointed in a safe direction with your finger off the trigger and along the frame. Cock the hammer with the thumb on your firing hand, or if you're using a two-handed, grip the thumb of your support hand. Then put your finger on the trigger, aim, and pull the trigger. Continue this process until the desired number of shots is fired. Firing the double-action revolver in the double-action mode is even easier. Simply align the sights with the target, put your trigger finger on the trigger, and squeeze the trigger all the way through its cycle. This will cause the hammer to cock and then release, firing the revolver. With practice, you'll be able to keep the sight right on target throughout the double-action pull. Decocking a double-action revolver is performed exactly the same way as you decock a single-action revolver. With your trigger finger off the trigger and placed alongside the frame, put the thumb of your support hand between the hammer and the frame to keep the hammer from falling and firing the gun. Put your firing hand thumb on the hammer spur. Place your index finger on the trigger and pull the trigger while you control the hammer. When the hammer is released by the trigger, remove your trigger finger from the trigger and slowly lower the hammer until it contacts your support hand thumb. Finally, take the support hand thumb from under the hammer and carefully ease the hammer all the way down. Unloading a double-action revolver is performed differently than unloading a single-action revolver. With your trigger finger off the trigger, wrap the fingers of the left hand around the frame, engage the cylinder release and push the cylinder out to the left of the frame with the two middle fingers of the left hand, while rotating the revolver frame to the right. Rotate the muzzle upward and push the ejector rod fully rearward with the left-hand thumb. This should extract and eject the empty shells and live cartridges in the cylinder, allowing them to be removed. If the empty cases stick in the chamber, it may be necessary to turn the muzzle vertical and hit the eject rod sharply with the palm of the right hand. The procedures for operating single and double-action semi-automatic pistols are similar in some ways and different in others. The first step in loading both types of pistols is loading the magazine. To load a pistol magazine, hold it in the support hand with the top upward and its front facing the firing hand. Grasp a live cartridge in the firing hand fingers with the head of the case facing outward. Use the case rim to depress the magazine follower and then slide the cartridge under the magazine feed lips all the way to the rear. Repeat this process until the magazine is loaded to capacity. To complete the loading process, insert the magazine into the magazine well of the gun cartridges facing forward. Make sure that it locks in place, then holding the pistol in the firing hand with the muzzle pointed in a safe direction, pull the slide fully to the rear with the support hand and then release it to go forward. This will chamber a cartridge. Don't ease or ride the slide down. Let it fly forward under spring pressure. Firing either type of semi-automatic pistol is done essentially the same way. Point the pistol in a safe direction. Make sure the safety or decocker of the pistol is in the fire position. Put the trigger finger into the trigger guard on the trigger. Take aim and pull the trigger. The pistol will fire and automatically eject the fired case and load another live cartridge into the chamber. Continue until you have fired the desired number of shots or until the magazine is empty. On most semi-automatic pistols, the slide will lock rearward after the last cartridge in a magazine is fired. At any time, if you want to stop firing momentarily and there are still cartridges in the magazine, put the gun on safe or engage the decocker to drop the hammer. To resume firing, move the safety or decocker to fire and pull the trigger. If you intend to stop firing for a longer period of time, or if you're going to leave the firing line, you should unload the pistol completely and leave it on the bench with the action open, or put the pistol in its case. Decocking a pistol with a decocking lever is accomplished simply by engaging that lever to drop the hammer. The final step in operating a semi-automatic pistol is unloading it. With most pistols, the magazine release is located at the rear of the trigger guard and is pressed with the firing hand thumb. Press the magazine release to drop the magazine from the gun. A few pistols may also have the magazine release located on a butt at the back of the magazine well. This type of release must be disengaged with the support hand. Once you remove the magazine from the pistol, you've still got to take the live cartridge out of the chamber. With the pistol held in your firing hand and pointed in a safe direction, put your trigger finger outside the trigger guard along the frame. Move the pistol safety or decocker to the safe position. Grasp the slide in the rear with your support hand and retract it sharply. This will extract a live cartridge from the chamber and eject it out of the ejection port. Visually and physically inspect the chamber and make sure it is empty. At this time, you may either lock the slide back or ease the slide forward and drop the hammer on an empty chamber by engaging the decocker of a double-action semi-automatic or by pulling the trigger to dry fire a single-action pistol. Your pistol owner's manual will tell you if dry firing is safe. Read your gun's owner's manual to learn any specific operating procedures your pistol requires. If you have any questions, contact the pistol's manufacturer.
The single most important aspect of pistol shooting is safety. Preventing firearm accidents should be every shooter's first priority. There are two main causes of firearm accidents. The first is ignorance or lack of knowledge. This can take two forms: ignorance of the rules for safe gun handling and ignorance of the proper and safe way to operate a pistol. The second cause of gun accidents is carelessness or a poor or improper attitude. Carelessness can result in the failure to apply the rules for safe gun handling or failure to observe the proper procedures for safe pistol operation. Wear eye and ear protection as appropriate and never use alcohol or drugs before or while shooting. Even over-the-counter drugs such as cold medicines can impair judgment or perception. And finally, store guns so they are not accessible to unauthorized persons. Knowing all the gun safety rules is not enough to ensure safe shooting. Having a safety-oriented attitude is the most important factor in shooting safely. Thus, you should focus not only on learning the rules, but also on developing the type of attitude that ensures you will follow them at all times.
A pistol is simply a device for firing cartridges, so it's a good idea for you to know something about ammunition. A cartridge consists of 4 parts. The case is a metal cylinder usually made of brass, closed at one end and which contains the other 3 components. The priming compound is an impact-sensitive chemical compound used for ignition. The powder charge is a fast-burning chemical compound used as a propellant and is ignited by the priming compound, and the bullet is the projectile that travels down the bore towards the target. Modern metallic cartridges are of 2 types, rimfire and centerfire. Rimfire cartridges contain a priming compound in the folded inside rim of the case head. In centerfire cartridges, the priming compound is contained in a metal cup, the primer located in the center of the case head. The primer is composed of a metal cup, a layer of priming compound, and an anvil which sits against the bottom of the primer pocket in the case. When a gun's trigger is pulled, a specific sequence of events occur. First, the firing pin strikes the primer or case rim and ignites the priming compound. The flame generated by the priming compound ignites the powder charge. The powder burns rapidly and generates a large volume of hot, high-pressure gas. At this time, the case walls expand against the walls of the chamber to form a gas seal. Finally, the high-pressure gas propels the bullet out of the barrel at a high velocity.
Every pistol is made to shoot a specific cartridge, so you must know how to identify the right ammunition for your gun. The barrel of your pistol is marked to indicate the proper ammunition for your gun. This should be matched with the head stamp, the cartridge designation stamped on the case head of a centerfire cartridge, and with the markings on the ammunition box. Some cartridges have more than one name, such as the 9mm Luger, and a few guns can fire more than one cartridge, such as revolvers chambered for the .357 Magnum, which can also fire the .38 Special cartridge. On top of that, some cartridge designations include a +P or +P+ suffix, such as cartridges that are loaded to higher pressures than standard cartridges of the same name. Pistols certified for such ammunition are usually, but not always, marked to indicate this. To ensure a long ammunition life and proper functioning, It should be stored in a cool, dry place. Avoid storage in a high-temperature location, such as an attic or in the trunk of a car. Also avoid exposing ammunition to water, solvents, petroleum products, bore cleaners, ammonia or other chemicals. These materials can deteriorate the powder or priming compound, resulting in a cartridge malfunction. And always wipe fingerprints off cartridge cases, as their salty residue can corrode cases. Always keep the ammunition in the original factory box or carton. This is important to prevent a potentially dangerous ammunition mix-up. And of course, store ammunition in a location where children or other unauthorised persons can't have access to it.
Although modern factory ammunition is extremely safe and reliable, you may encounter one of 3 types of cartridge malfunctions. The first type of malfunction is a misfire, which is the failure of a cartridge to ignite when a primer or case rim has been struck by the firing pin. This may be caused by a defect in the cartridge or pistol. The second type of malfunction is a hang fire, which is a perceptible delay in the ignition of a cartridge after the primer or case rim has been struck by the firing pin. This delay may last several seconds. When a cartridge fails to fire immediately, it will not be known at first if the problem is a misfire or a hang fire. You should keep the pistol pointed in a safe direction, as a hang fire condition might exist and cause the pistol to fire after a substantial delay. For this reason, you should wait at least 30 seconds before opening the action to remove the cartridge. The third malfunction is the squib load. This occurs when the cartridge develops less than normal pressure or velocity when it's ignited. With a squid load, the bullet may fail to exit the muzzle and lodge on the bore. If you notice anything unusual upon firing a shot, such as reduced noise, muzzle flash, or recoil, a squib load should be suspected. Stop firing immediately while keeping the muzzle pointed in a safe direction. Unload the pistol, checking to ensure that all chambers are empty.
The 5 fundamentals of pistol shooting are aiming, hold control, breath control, trigger control, and follow through. Aiming is the process of achieving the proper relationship between the target, the front sight, and the rear sight. Aiming is further broken down into sight alignment and sight picture. Sight alignment refers to the proper relationship of the eye and the pistol's front and rear sights. Proper sight alignment is the key to accurate shooting. With the typical post and notch sights found on most pistols, the top of the front sight is even with the top of the rear sight, and the post is centered in the notch with equal amounts of light on both sides. The second part of aiming is sight picture. Sight picture is obtained by achieving proper sight alignment, and then putting the alignment sights into the proper relationship with the target. Your eye can only focus on one object at a time, so you should concentrate on the front sight, which will appear sharp and clear, while the rear sight and the target will be less sharp or blurred. Another key is to keep both of your eyes open while aiming, which increases the light available to the eyes and improves depth perception. Leaving both eyes open eliminates facial contortions and muscle tension. If necessary, you can place a small piece of frosted tape on the inside of the lens of the shooting glasses in front of the non-shooting eye to relieve eye strain.
Grip is an important factor in hold control. A good grip allows you to hold the gun more steadily and naturally with less tension. However, no one can hold a gun perfectly still. Even the best shooters exhibit a small degree of motion. This motion is called the arc of movement. With practice, you'll be able to minimize the arc of movement while maintaining proper sight picture. Body movement while breathing can produce gun movement, which impairs shooting. You can use breath control to minimize this movement. To minimize body movement, take a breath before each shot. Let enough air out to be comfortable and simply stop breathing while firing the shot. Be careful though, holding your breath too long can result in muscle tremors. If this occurs, remove your trigger finger from the trigger, lower the gun while pointing it in a safe direction, relax and take a few breaths, and then begin the process of firing the shot all over again.
Trigger control, the third fundamental, is the proper method of activating the trigger to minimize movement that can misalign the sights. To exercise proper trigger control, first place the index finger on the trigger about halfway between the fingertip and the first joint. Squeeze the trigger straight to the rear in a smooth, continuous manner without disturbing sight picture.
The final shooting fundamental is follow-through. Follow-through enables you to integrate, maintain, and continue all the shooting fundamentals before, during, and immediately after firing. Follow-through is an important fundamental of not just shooting, but also many other sports such as golf, archery, and baseball. Although all the shooting fundamentals are important, the two most critical fundamentals in pistol shooting are aiming and trigger control. The other fundamentals contribute to achieving these.
During your shooting session, you should avoid eating, drinking, smoking, or placing your hands near your mouth or eyes. This will keep you from ingesting lead particles or chemical residues. After shooting, wash your hands and face with cold soapy water and change and clean your clothing. Some sights are not adjustable. They're called fixed sights. These are often present for a specific distance, such as 15 or 25 yards. With fixed sights, you can often change the vertical point of impact by trying different types of ammunition in your gun. When you have zeroed your pistol, try shooting at a bullseye target. Use a 6 o'clock hold with the sights aligned at the very bottom of the bullseye. This will enable you to see the front sight clearly in the white area of the target around the bullseye. Remember that you can only focus on one thing at a time, so you should concentrate on the front sight.
To clean your pistol properly, you will need a cleaning kit consisting of a cleaning rod, a bronze or nylon brush and jag of the proper size, bore solvent, cotton patches, a small brush for cleaning residue out of crevices, a soft cloth and gun oil. The initial step in self-cleaning a pistol is to disassemble it. That means removing the slide, barrel and recoil spring unit from a semi-automatic, and in most cases simply opening the cylinder of a revolver. Cleaning the bore is first. Put the jag on the cleaning rod, attach a patch to it, wet the patch with solvent, and run it through the bore once or twice. Next, put the bore brush on the cleaning rod and apply some bore solvent. Avoid dipping the brush in the bore solvent to keep the solvent clean of any material that may be on the brush. Run the brush through the bore 10 to 15 times. This will dislodge powder residue, copper fouling, and other unwanted materials. Then, reinstall the jag on the rod and use it to run a series of dry patches through the bore until clean. With a barrel of a semi-automatic, insert the patch into the chamber end of the bore. When the patches come out with little or no discoloration and no dirt is visible in the bore, the barrel is clean. When you're cleaning a revolver, each chamber of the cylinder is cleaned in the same way as the bore. Use your small brush to clean grit and residue out of the crevices and other areas that are hard to get at. Use your soft cloth to clean and lubricate all the exposed surfaces of the gun, and apply oil directly to key points such as the slide, barrel and trigger of a semi-automatic, and the frame, trigger and hammer of a revolver. When you have the pistol apart and clean, take a moment to inspect its parts for damage or wear. When you're done, reassemble your pistol and the cleaning process is completed. Like any machine, your pistol, if used frequently, will require periodic maintenance in addition to cleaning. For example, the recoil springs of semi-automatic pistols should be replaced roughly every 3,000 shots. Also, your pistol owner's manual will contain maintenance recommendations, and a competent gunsmith can help you with any questions, as well as periodic gun checkups. Don't forget to observe all hygiene guidelines as you perform maintenance on your pistol. To keep your pistol clean and safe, store it properly in a cool, dry place that is not accessible to unauthorized persons, and ammunition should be stored separately.